Wendell Holmes, who said, "The life of the law has not been logic, it has been experience, the felt necessities of the time." Judge Martin Jenkins has the right experience at the right time in our state's history. He'll also be making history as only the third black man to serve on our highest court and the first openly gay Supreme Court justice. And trust me, as someone who understands firsthand the role of the court in determining marriage equality to be a fundamental right, I can't tell you how important it is to have someone on the bench who's a living, breathing example of the idea that love means love. He hasn't just learned the power of the law to protect our human rights. Martin Jenkins has lived it. So Justice Martin Jenkins is a person of highest principles, and I'm honored today to nominate him to the California's highest court. Justice Jenkins.
On a day like today, the only emotion that I can think of to express is one of sincere gratitude to you, Governor, on behalf of me and my family for the honor that you accord our family today. In the short time I have, there are far too many people to thank for the road that has led me to this place, this juncture, at this time. So a few simple thank yous and acknowledgments will have to suffice. I want to start by thanking you, Governor Newsom. I couldn't have known a little less than 2 years ago when I accepted your offer to serve as your Judicial Appointment Secretary that I would stand here today as a nominee for the California Supreme Court. And you couldn't have known when you took the oath of office 2 years ago of the challenges that you would face, the untold challenges you have faced, with wildfires on one hand and a pandemic on the other. And I have had the pleasure of watching you for the last 2 years deal with those challenges, straightforward and upright, leading from the front. And I have watched you always to try to fashion policy and initiatives that reflect your deepest values, equality and inclusion of all, protecting the least in California, along with Californians in general. And I've been inspired by your work. And I want you to know I will take the lessons I've learned in working with you to my new responsibilities on the California Supreme Court. Thank you so much, Governor. I also want to acknowledge the member of the Supreme Court that I will replace in this new responsibility, Justice Ming Chen, who's been a friend, and he has also led me through support to the place I stand here today. 25 years of tremendous service to the citizens of California, and I want to acknowledge his service. I would also be remiss if I did not acknowledge, and I heard you say, Governor, that I am the third African-American man ever to serve on this court. But my career spans the first two. I remember well when Wiley Emanuel was appointed in 1977 to the California Supreme Court, to be followed by Alan Broussard. I understand that it's been 29 years since an African-American man has served on the High Court. And I would not be here today without the support and mentorship of both of those men and others, Judge Judy Ford, Judge Thelton Henderson, all of whom blazed the trail so that I could stand here today and accept your nomination, Governor. Closer to home, my parents are no longer with us, but I know they know what is transpiring in this moment. I can't imagine that my parents could have imagined that I would stand in this place today, or that they could see that I would be a nominee to the California Supreme Court. What I do know is that they knew what I would need to be in a position to qualify for this kind of opportunity. They gave all of their kids a fine education. They taught us respect for others. And as importantly, they taught us the value of serving others, public service, which my father modeled as a janitor at Coit Tower for well over 25 years. Those are the values my sisters and brothers have. Those are the same values that I saw in my partner, Sidney Shan. They caused me to fall in love with him. And while my parents aren't here today, he is, and I thank him for my support. I think in closing, I want to say something about being a first. There have been firsts and there will continue to be first. There's a significant responsibility that goes with being first that I think can be best dispatched in doing the work at the highest level I possibly can. But I want to say to some young person who may be out there today who is struggling with their identity, anyone who knows me knows my identity has been, as a gay man, perhaps the greatest challenge of my life. And it has not been easy. But I want to say today to those young people who may be watching and those who may hear about what has transpired here, that I am not here in spite of the struggle. I'm here because of the struggle. It has deepened my character, afforded me sensibilities about the world and about people who are not so willing to accept that people can love differently than they do, but nevertheless love sincerely and genuinely and effectively. I want these young people to know that living a life of authenticity is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And if you do that, you too will find yourself in a position where people see you. They really see you and who you are, your authentic self. And the extraordinary opportunity I'm being offered today, I thank you, Governor Newsom, for seeing me. And I will promise to do my best to dispatch the enormous responsibilities that are incumbent with this great office. Thank you, Governor Newsom.
Well, now you know why I just nominated Judge Jenkins, and what an honor, man of decency, character, faith and devotion to the law, but an extraordinary lived experience that he'll bring to bear on this court. We couldn't be more proud of this moment and more proud of Justice Jenkins. And so I just wanted to dispense with that from top of today's presentation because of the magnitude and importance we place upon these selections to the California State Supreme Court. We certainly look forward to an expedited process through what we refer to as Jenny, and hopefully seeing Justice Jenkins on the court as early as next month. With that, let me update everybody on COVID-19 and our emergency preparedness response, and I'll begin with a slide here of the top 20 largest California wildfires that date back to 1932. This slide is very telling. It's also very alarming. If you take a look at the slide, you'll see a very large red part of the pie representing the August complex, which is now the largest in California's history. You can see it makes up more than all of the fires that occurred between 1932 and 1999. You can see the blue, what has occurred since 2000, just in a decade, the number of fires, and of course this year with the unprecedented number of wildfires here in the state of California. If that's not proof point testament to climate change, I don't know what is. Forest management has long been an issue. Vegetation management is certainly an issue in this state and in this nation. But just consider what has occurred since 1999 here in the state of California and put it in perspective as it relates to the challenges we face here in California. 4 million now acres have been burned. Year to date, 23 major wildfire complexes still raging here in the state of California. 31 people have lost their lives. Close to 9,000 structures now have been destroyed in the state of California, and that's 8,687 structures destroyed and counting. As we get back in, repopulate areas, that number invariably will grow. As it relates to the number of wildfires here in the state of California, we also have a number of challenges with number of people coming from all across the country, mutual aid system that continues to be challenging, including, by the way, this presentation. And so in just a moment, I'll get back as we get this presentation up, because I want to make sure that we are providing all of the information in an accurate manner. Just one moment.
So we're waiting for the governor to actually get to the clip that he's got while we're waiting for them to figure out how to do this. I'm just wondering why we have to, or what's the big deal? Okay, you nominate a gay black man. Why does that have to be? In 2020, that has to be mentioned like it's something unusual or something that's never happened before?
All right. Well, just like the virus and the fire spread, so does our resolve to get this technology back up and running. As I was just noting, we've had over 16,600 firefighters working on these fires, mutual aid from...
Look, the Klondike can't even get a video to run, for crying out loud, with all the resources of the state of California.
Fires here in the state of California. The one that's top of mind continues to be is a glass fire up in and around Napa and Sonoma counties. Last week, I presented to you that we were 0% contained on that fire. 11,000 acres have burned. You'll see a substantial increase in the total number of acres burned, now 65,000. Some progress on containment, 30%, which is encouraging. What's also encouraging is more favorable weather conditions, more seasonable weather now later in this week, not the above average temperatures that have occurred. We also were able to withstand some larger wind events over the course of the last number of days, and that's primarily one of the reasons you'll see the large spread in total number of acreage. But progress being made nonetheless on the glass fire remains one of our top priorities to mitigate the spread and suppress that fire. The Zog fire as well, a new fire complex that we announced last week was 7,000 acres. See today, real progress has been made on Zog, 76% containment, some growth, 56,000 acres, but nonetheless, real containment in this space. I mentioned a moment ago the August complex, 45% contained in some 878,000 acres last week burned, now breaking 1 million acres, unprecedented in California's history. This is simply the largest active wildfire in the state's history. Again, you looked at that previous chart going back to 1932. This predates even records prior to 1932. Progress, stubborn, 54% containment on this complex. Speaking of complexes, the northern complex in and around Plumas and Lassen counties, 78% contained last week, a little over 300,000 acres. We were able to keep the containment on the acreage to 318,000, 83% contained. The Creek Fire, large federal fire, though under a joint incident command with the state, California, CAL FIRE, and the U.S. Forest Service in and around the Fresno Madera region of the state, 39% contained last week, 306,000 acres. Again, remember this fire is in that heavily impacted region of the state that was impacted disproportionately by the drought, impacted by quite literally over 100 million trees just in this specific area that fell due to that historic drought between 2011 and 2017. 39% contained last week, making progress, 48% containment, but you're seeing the acreage we're getting under control in that fire. Speaking of other fires that have generated a lot of energy and anxiety and concern, the LA County Bobcat fire last week, we made some real progress, 62% containment, a little over 100,000 acres, more containment now this week, almost 88%, in fact, 88% to be exact, containment on that fire, and you can see the total number of acreage burned holding very, very steady. So again, favorable wind conditions, favorable weather conditions broadly taking shape over the state. A number of other complexes that we've been highlighting over the course of the last number of months that we did not include in these slides because we've made substantial progress, and that is encouraging. And so what has been historic since, you recall, August 15th, and the 72 extraordinary hours, over 11,000 lightning strikes in that unprecedented short period of time, put enormous pressure on this state. We're finally getting our arms around it, real progress being made, but still 23 stubborn fires that we're working aggressively to contain. Again, hats off to the men and women in uniform, CAL FIRE, and again, all the mutual aid all across this country for their outstanding work. Speaking of work, we continue to have a lot of work to do on COVID-19 transmission and rates of this pandemic and disease. As you can see, we have made progress here in the state of California with stable case rates. I'll highlight those in just a moment, but you're starting to see an increase in COVID-19 cases all across the country. In fact, as of this morning, 21 states have seen an increase in transmission rates of COVID-19. We're seeing this, by the way, not just across the country, you're seeing this increasingly around the world. Take a look at the headlines in France out of Paris today, what's happening in the United Kingdom, what's been happening in Israel, what Germany is projecting and concerned about. And this is the second wave that many had predicted based upon our closest approximate frame, and that's what occurred in 1918 and 1919. And that was a, I think, very, well, instructive example of what can happen if we let our guard down here across not only the United States, but around the rest of the world. The prospect of a second wave potentially being as impactful or more impactful. It certainly was the case, the Spanish flu, 1918 into the fall. And that's why we have to be very vigilant, and that's why we have to be very sober about what is going on. And I'll remind you, and you can see this here on the slide, that it takes about 20 to 30 days to see upticks in hospitalizations and in the ICUs. You'll see that the numbers continue to trend down in the state, but if we start seeing an increased number of cases, invariably, you'll start seeing an increase in the hospitalization, the pressure in our ICUs. This slide, by the way, it can be very helpful. It's a case trend slide over the last 2 weeks all across the United States. Can be deceiving. Again, the green shows that California has fared fairly well over the last 14 days compared to other states relates to the transmission of COVID-19. You can see in those orange areas where you're starting to see an uptake, stabilization, or increase in rates of cases and positivity across the country. And so, again, let us maintain our vigilance. Let us not take down our guard. Let us continue to take very seriously this pandemic, this disease. Here are the case numbers, update from yesterday, 3,055. It comes very close to the 3,074 seven-day average. By the way, seven-day average of cases in the state is slightly better than what this slide represents. Remember, the total test versus positivity rate is over a 14-day period on this slide, 2.8% positivity rate over 14 days. Case rate over a 7-day period, slightly better at 2.6%. Our average number of daily tests are starting to increase. This weekend, we had 160,000 tests, 140,000 tests, 130,000 tests the last 3 days. So we're starting to see a growth in the total number of daily tests, the average tests getting back up again, impacted substantially by the wildfires over the course of the last 6 or so weeks. So more tests, positivity rate that's holding steady at 2.6% over
Lowest
7 days.
it's ever been.
Here
What's he
reflected on this
talking
slide,
about?
2.8% over 14-day period. The hospitalization numbers, as you can see, continue to trend down, 13% decrease over the last 14 days. That decrease is beginning to plateau a little bit. The rate of decrease
It's
is
still lower
slowing.
than what he said.
Not only on hospitalizations, the rate of decrease is slowing as it relates to ICU admissions here in the state, represented by a 15% decrease in admission decline over the last 2 weeks. You'll recall in previous slides, going back the last number of weeks, we've seen decreases, 14-day trailing decreases of closer to 20%.
Okay, there's 15% decrease in COVID-19 admissions. See, we've been under what since the 28th? We've been under 700 and haven't been in there in ICU admissions in a lifetime. What is this guy talking about? This lying sack of crap who's a governor of that saying that here's the daily positivity down to 2.8%. He said we were opening up at 5%, everything's fine, nothing's wrong. We're 2.8%, and we're talking about we cannot open up. It's absolutely incredulous. Here's the chart. COVID-19 is increasing across the country. It takes 20 to 30 days to see upticks in hospitalizations. California is stable now, but it could change. Here you go. Here's the chart we're going to be talking about. California is in the green, which Gavin Newsom never will let us be in. He doesn't even have a green in his reopening plan. California is in the green nationwide. So is Arizona, which you heard everybody was going to die in Arizona too, and Florida. Look at where they are in the green. So this is a fraud. If nothing else tells you that this is a fraud, this right here does. California is stable now, but could change. COVID-19 is increasing across the country. We don't really give a rip of what's going on across the country. We care about what's going on in California. Or that's your responsibility, ding dong. Get with the program, Newsom. There's no more reason now that this is all about control. It's just like the whole thing. So you nominated a gay black man. Why is that an issue? Why is that even brought up in 2020? Why not the qualifications? If the guy's fit to be a judge, then so be it. We don't really need to know who, what, or why, or how he's sleeping with. It really is irrelevant. It's irrelevant whatever he's doing on that, as long as he's not doing anything illegal. So why is it? The fact that you bring this stuff up as an issue perpetuates the racism, the discrimination, all across the board that this guy right here is all about, that he just showed. Not only is he on a big power trip with this, you're never going to get in the green ever again for any reason on that. He continues to deny that because he just doesn't want to give up power. We'll be back here in a few minutes with a Trump update from his doctors, and of course, we'll cover it all starting live at 5 on IE Newswire on Facebook and YouTube, and then we join into KMET, the Mighty Met 1490, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire. So until our next broadcast, see ya!